I started getting people who were young and now were in proper bands like King Gizzard and Alex Cameron and I think Client Liaison, just all in this one little cluster. I would just happen to be at different places where kind of, and they're going, when I was a kid, before I was in a band, like I used to watch Music Jamboree, and I never. So it seemed like the people who liked Music Jamboree had they were grown ups, and I just thought, oh, that's a good enough reason as anything.
Yeah, you're the Velvet Underground. everyone who tuned into SBS at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night ended up starting a band.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another instalment of How to Do Everything, the podcast in which I, Tommy Dasilo, am attempting to assemble a complete guidebook to the human experience by chatting to different guest experts about what they've learned, what they've always known how to do, and what they feel the stupidest about. Today on the show, John SAFRAN is going to teach me how to break into Kanye's mansion, how to shave your head without looking like you've completely lost the plot, and how to confront my ex-girlfriend. But first, my show at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival opens next week. If you are listening to this hot off the presses, March 26th at the Cooper's Inn. I would love to see you there. Some nights are really filling up. Please get along. I'm really proud of the show. I cannot wait to do it. So much fun stuff in there. Would love to see a bunch of you folks there. And I'll be hanging around after the show if you happen to come down. Don't know why I've included that detail. For anyone looking to assassinate me, that's where I'll be every night. And then the show is going to Sydney and Brisbane in May. Tickets are at tommydasilo.com. But today on the show, the legend, John SAFRAN. I've been a fan of John SAFRAN for years and years and years, going all the way back to Music Jamboree. He's had a bunch of incredible TV shows that are so influential on myself and many other people. He's been writing books for the last little while. Depends what you mean by extremism, Murder in Mississippi, and his most recent one, Squat, which is about a week that he spent breaking into and living in one of Kanye West's abandoned mansions. I was rapt that John said yes to coming on the show. As I said, I'm a massive fan. We talk a bit about the book. We talk about a project that I am trying to work on that I feel a bit weird about putting out while I'm still sort of very much in the planning stages of it. But I wanted John's input on it, and it ended up being very, very worthwhile to get his thoughts. Should also say too, we recorded this near the end of last year, certainly in advance of Kanye's most recent tirade meltdown, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, this is How to Do Everything with John SAFRAN. Weirdly, maybe a week before you announced this book, I was thinking about you in a very specific context.
Oh, yes. Because
I was in Cairns, and I don't know if you know about, I believe it's called Double Island. It's an island just off Palm Cove Beach, and it used to be this luxury island resort, and celebrities would go on holiday there, like Jennifer Aniston and Keanu Reeves had been there, and then it sort of fell on hard times, and this Hong Kong-based billionaire bought it, and he has done nothing with it. It's not open to the public. It's like fallen into absolute disrepair. And now I believe that the government are trying to get it back off him because they're like, well, he's broken the terms of this, and this is just this like beautiful island that should be this tourist destination, and it's been abandoned for I think 10 years or something. And I was at the beach with my friend who lives there, and she was like pointing, you can see it from the beach. And I just got so fascinated by it. I was like, so obviously there's not going to be security there if they've just given up on it. So what, you could just go there? And she's like, yeah, I think people do. Like most people are, like a lot of people that live around here have a boat. So they'll just like take a little trip out there. And I just was thinking like, that's so interesting. Like if I was more of like a John SAFRAN type, I would be like cancelling my flight home and trying to like assemble a skeleton crew.
Cancel culture. That sounds like a joke, but it's not. I don't know why. whenever I've just made it a rule that if anyone says
the word cancelling
in any context besides cancel, I'm going to just lean in and go cancel culture.
That's cancel culture gone mad. Yeah, you're at the airport, flights all cancelled.
Yeah, that's why I usually do the joke.
Yeah, right.
It gets cancelled.
This is cancel culture. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this plane did, but honestly, I'm happy to separate the art from the artist. If you can just put me on this flight.
So I think that's a good idea. Let's go.
I mean, hopefully this pod gets big enough that, hey, first live show, Double Island. Everyone has to charter their own boat to come and watch us do a live
There's so many little nooks and crannies in the world you would not believe that I know, because I do a lot of snooping around, deciding what my next project's going to be. And the amount of things that aren't said or not, like you just said, that won't be the...
It's just there.
There'll be so many locations in Australia that have some weird little abandoned backstory or even... The big one to give, what I'm getting at about how there's so many stories out there and you just don't know them is, I did true crime writing for a while, and I'd turn up to the court for a particular case, but you'd have to sit there through 3 other mentions or whatever like that.
Sure.
And they were always crazy. And,
oh, really?
And it was just, yes, it was almost like, when am I going to be sitting here and there's like a boring court case or whatever?
But that's in the States, right?
No.
Here?
Totally here.
Oh, right.
I remember turning up, it was a court case, I think this ISIS-associated dude that I'd been writing about, there was going to be a case with him. And
you're thinking, okay, the ISIS guy.
And I'm just sitting there, and the case before is... this guy who was caught running around in the Melbourne CBD with a chainsaw.
Okay.
And his explanation was that Pink told him to.
Okay,
the singer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's happening? And also the whole thing, everyone had to pretend it was normal. Like the magistrate had to go, anyway.
Okay, yeah, I've heard the facts.
Like that. But that's really...
I mean, if you're booking those days in court, surely you're thinking like, we got the ISIS guy coming in. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
We need to buffer out the day with just a few speeding fines and tram tickets and stuff like that. Because my friend who studied law, what he told me was they had to go as part of their degree near the end and just like sit in court and observe for a bit. And he had the opposite read on it, where he was like... It's mostly very boring, except for the fact that you get a lot of people turn up who are like, I'm pleading the fifth, and then have to be told by the judge that there is no Fifth Amendment here. That's you've watched too many movies. And he was like, I think that happened in maybe like 95% of the cases that I sat through. But this book, like there is something about just the abandoned building that's not just, mid being built or has just gone out of business, but the place that is in such disrepair that there's not even security there anymore. It's just a completely open slather. Yeah,
I mean, people are surprised that Kanye's got this mansion that I could make my way into, is the legal expression. And they're like, where's the security? And it's like, things are just more random than that in the world. And I think the explanation for no security, because I did find out from a neighbour that security had left 2 weeks earlier, and Kanye hadn't been there for months and months and months and months, and then finally security, he saw them drive out and not get replaced. And I think it was he just failed to pay them and they gave up.
Sure. And I mean,
that was a bit of his a bit of a scent that I picked up, a bit of a trail I picked up wherever Kanye was meant to be, like in this, he set up this school that he then abandoned.
Yep.
I'd turn up and there's all these unopened utility bills addressed to Kanye West.
Yeah, the bits where you're just going through his like really, banal like admin stuff that he even wouldn't want to do.
I think he's even worse at admin than me.
Right.
And I have my dad is a bookkeeper, so maybe if I didn't have my dad as a bookkeeper, you'd be Kanye. I'd be more Kanye. Just have these utility bills strewn out in front of my house.
Well, there's such a interesting part of the book is that you talk in the book about how you're obviously aware of Kanye, but you had never really gone very deep on his music.
Yeah.
And your partner, who is in the book quite a lot, is sort of like, kind of helping you out with this quest. I dated a girl for a little while who had a tattoo on her inner lower lip that just said Yeezy. And I think about her a lot in the wake of all of this stuff coming out, because it's like, I don't know, maybe she would be a person who's like, yeah, I don't care, I'm happy to keep listening to it. But I just think like, the thing about him is that he, more than anyone, I mean, he just looms large over all of culture. Like, there wouldn't have really been anyone with like, you know, a Kevin Spacey tattoo who was like, oh, damn, this is so, you know, this is so damaging to my whole, like, I've based my whole personality on him. But like...
Yeah, I think I was quite at ease in some ways. Because Kanye did get legitimate criticism and so much of it, I kind of felt like, oh, no, people know he's... Like, people know. And that gave me a sense of relaxation in a way as a Jewish person. I was like, oh, no, people are backing up the Jews a bit. They're saying, no, did say things that were pretty nasty to watch. It's usually when people don't stand up for you, that's when it gets annoying.
Right. If he had have said it and everyone had have been like, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that, and look, truth be told.
And I guess I'm kind of getting around to like, there's always going to be eccentric, dangerous or whatever people in the world. So we can't affect that, but we can affect with how we stand with people who are being attacked.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I mean, with him, you saw so many people at the time be like, oh, he said this heinous stuff and, you know, his last couple of albums have sucked anyway. And it's like, well, again, I mean that, what, you're happy to throw him out just because you haven't liked his two most recent albums? Like that's not the takeaway. I mean, I guess for me, like growing up, my favorite musician, and still one of my favorite musicians, was Jamiroquai. Someone who was already like very daggy and very like cancelable in his just insistence of wearing the Native American headdress on stage. So it's like, that's the trick. Be into someone who's like pre-cancelled and then nothing's ever going to knock him off the pedestal.
That's kind of interesting because I don't think he did get that much flack. I lived him in real time. Like
at the time, not so much, but now, because they came here and played about a year ago, and I remember like... He did a Welcome to Country. They had like a lot of their old songs have didgeridoo in it, and he got someone to come out and play the didgeridoo and was very respectful. But then he's also up there wearing the Native American thing that he's been told so many times is like an issue. And I just read this review where it was like, oh man, this was all over the place. Like you seem to really get it in a lot of ways, but then also just like, I don't know, man, wear a different hat. Wear any other hat.
My Jamiroquai, not now because I've matured, but when I was younger, I much preferred things that were a bit darker and had a bit more of a cynical take on the world. So and I was actually kind of annoyed by musicians and even whole genres that were more positive. Yeah, okay. So like reggae, for instance, was always...
annoying to you.
Because it's like happy or whatever. And then like later I grew up and I realised if you look at the roots of that... maybe it's like people who are in such advantageous socio-economic conditions, then of course you want your music to be kind of a release from that happiness or whatever, and to kind of be dark and grungy and like in some ways that can be a luxury when your life's going pretty cool. Yeah.
So I got into your work probably, I guess I would have been like maybe year 10, Music Jamboree was on. And then I think I've talked with you about this before on another podcast, but my year 12 media studies film that I had to do was a little documentary that I made that was heavily influenced by your work. I would say embarrassingly so.
Did you list?
I reckon I was on the cusp. I was doing... On the cusp. I don't think I could watch it back. I think I would be too...
No, I'd like to watch this.
Mortified by how... But so... At the time, so this is like 2004, and I was thinking about this the other day and trying to work out how I would have come across this information. I had your email address somehow, and this is like, you know, pre-social media, pre-MySpace or Facebook or anything. And so I emailed you and I said, oh, I've made this film for my year 12 project, and it's really influenced by you. Is there like an office or somewhere where I could like send a DVD copy to? Yeah. Again, this pre-YouTube, any digital links or anything. And you just gave me your home address, which I thought was like, which I just at the time was like, wow, that's kind of cool. Like I was sort of really like taken aback.
Did you ever send it?
I think I did, yeah. I think I you know what? It's even weirder than that. I think I went past the address because it wasn't too far from where I lived, and I dropped it in the mailbox just in the hopes that I would I would cite you taking out the bins or something.
No, that would have been good if I was up on my balcony and I just saw you
rifling around in your letterbox trying to find your unpaid utility bills.
And then it's maybe I'll have to search it. What was it called?
It was called Saving Wood. So it was a documentary about how it's on it's on YouTube, but it's like I have it hidden, and then every now and then it comes up on a pod that I'm doing, and I'll get a couple of messages being like, hey, I'd love to see it, and so I'll make it public for like a week, and then I just get too embarrassed and hide. Well,
you're going to be, considering you like Music Jamboree, you're going to be very upset when I tell you this. That originally Squat, the book we're talking about, that was because Kanye had this meltdown. And he was blaming the Jews for screwing his music career. So what I pitched to Penguin was, okay, he's a lunatic, but it is true that from Michelangelo complaining about the Catholic Church to Taylor Swift complaining about Apple and Spotify, artists feel they're being have had uneasy relationships with their benefactors.
Sure, yep.
And so I was thinking of using the Kanye story to basically do a Music Jamboree too.
Okay.
But then when I went over there, just other interesting themes emerged, mainly the history of like Jewish Americans and Black Americans and how they were sort of in solidarity sometimes, and then had prickly relationships, and that just seemed to have more electricity to it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like...
I love the idea that you do... Also, you call the book Music Jamboree too.
Oh, no, I think I would have called it. But it was based on... I started getting people who were young and now were in proper bands, like King Gizzard and Alex Cameron, and I think Client Liaison, just all in this one little cluster. I would just happen to be at different places where and they're going, when I was a kid, before I was in a band, like I used to watch Music Jamboree, and so it seemed like the people who liked Music Jamboree had they were grown up, and I just thought, that's a good enough reason as anything.
Yeah, you're the Velvet Underground. Everyone who tuned into SBS at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night ended up starting a band.
Yeah. So I thought, maybe this book will be using Kanye and be sort of as this Music Jamboree too. And I did do a couple of, and they're not in the book, interviews at the start where I explored that. And
you dressed up as Kanye and tried to sneak into Revolver.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Easy to do because he's always wearing the big balaclava thing. So you don't even have to do any,
So it didn't end up being Music Jamboree too.
Didn't end up being as fruitful. But no, so you gave me your address, and then I sent you a little thing, a little questionnaire for this show, and you just wrote back and said, hey, if you've got any questions, here's my phone number. I just love how you're so you're so trusting with just giving out all of your personal details.
Well, this time, to be fair, you're a grown up and we're in the same industry.
Yeah, true.
So I really just didn't want to fill out your forms.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair.
I don't like doing homework.
Yeah,
for and sometimes if there's a younger journalist, they can't get their head around because they're what's a phone? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm scared of the phone.
Yeah, that's me.
John me sending John 10 questions for this interview and then him saying, just ring me about this and tape it and do it yourself. It's too much like homework otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
That's him. That's a microaggression from John to trying to give me a nervous breakdown by having to make a phone call. Well,
I wondered if you being there was something, and you're right, we're kind of in the same industry, we know each other a little bit, but I really read it as you are a guy who a lot of your work relies on being able to get access, getting yes responses to things. So it's like when you do a podcast, it's like anyone asks you to do their podcast, you kind of have to say yes because you're spending your life chasing people to do yours. So you have to kind of pay it forward. So it was funny to imagine you you're working on something at the moment where you're really hoping to be able to get Paul McCartney's phone number or something. So you're just I'm just going to give mine out to anyone who shows even a passing interest and just hope that this
you
is good karma
yourself.
for the universe.
Okay, maybe when you were in high school and I said just send it to my postal address, that's one thing. But last time, no, I won't just give my number out to anyone.
Yeah.
You're special enough.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Well, because, so this is... I want to ask you about something that... like I say, I've been a fan of your work for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially something that I would say is an area of expertise of yours is I wouldn't say that nothing in your work is like confrontational, but you are happy to be in these scenarios with people where you're having a difficult conversation.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you must have been, even though it's, kind of crazy pie in the sky to think of this happening, a thread in the book is you are hoping to eventually find Kanye.
Yeah.
And you would have had moments, right, where you're in the house like legitimately thinking like he could just pop in at any moment to pick something up or check on the place or whatever.
Well, I'm kind of glad I didn't find him because of the way the book was. There was like a week and a half before I go into the mansion where I'm doing all this research, jumping around New York and Los Angeles, interviewing people around, Black Americans and Jewish Americans and things around Kanye. And if I would have found Kanye, I wouldn't have gone into the mansion.
Then you're right.
And I feel like the mansion thing is, at least as a soundbite, as an elevator pitch. I think squatting in Kanye's mansion is a better elevator pitch than...
I met Kanye.
Yeah, and I kind of was not that this was an overbearing thing or anything, but I was thinking I was just chasing Kanye, just not, and considering I wasn't a super fan or anything.
Right.
Like, is it just does it kind of like not land? You know what I mean? As an idea, like I'm sure if I would have met him and went on a crazy adventure, like I'd make it work or whatever. Yeah. But I did think, and once I was in the mansion and then writing it about, I was going, oh, thank God. This is, because even a real cynical enemy of me would probably have to go, no, that's kind of a pretty cool, funny idea.
Yeah, but were you kind of like mentally in your head ready for, let's say, because there are multiple moments where if you're going to meet him, it's going to happen like very abruptly. It's not like you've, gone through a agent or whatever and it's being lined up. It is going to sort of happen by accident of you just happening to be somewhere where he is turning up. Did you have much of an idea ready to go of how confrontational you were prepared to be, or like that whether to call him out on?
You see, that's what would have been difficult if I met him. Like I would have somehow worked it out, I guess. But because the book doesn't really spend a lot of time. I mean, I let it speak for itself that he's said these problematic things, and I kind of more like try to connect them with a broader picture, like as opposed to just sort of taking him down or whatever, because it just seems too obvious. Yeah, to take, like, well done, John. this guy's come out supporting Adolf Hitler. Yeah. And, John, you're against it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
And there's something...
That's the guy who's too scared of being cancelled, where you write a book where it's just literally called Anti-Semitism is Bad. You're like, please no one come for me.
And then... and there's something also about my character in my work where I get so little leeway to... People both want me to make a moral point, but not moralize. So it's so tricky. Like no one wants a book of mine or a doco of mine not making some point. Like they want that. But I have to do it in this way where I'm not moral. As soon as I moralize, people are like that. And
because they also want you to be funny as well, which brings in, like, it's kind of hard to just like strip all of that away and then all of a sudden just really grandstand with
and because Kanye was so over the top in what he did, I guess it was a bit easier in this thing to kind of do what I just said, make a point without moralizing, because it was so ridiculous and over the top the way he expressed himself. And also I try to make myself a bit, I don't know if the word's complicit, but I try to get down and dirty and amongst the mess of it all. Yeah. And,
yeah, I mean, that's what's kind of cool about it is that you're frequently talking about how you've now crossed this line.
Yeah, totally.
Where you can't even really have the moral high ground anymore.
In the first draft of the book, there was a bit more snarkiness of me having a go at my presumed readitership about about their kind of attitudes. But then my editor was just going, what the hell, John? Wait, I tell you what else. Have you seen Joker 2?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so the thing with that is they're going, why the hell have you done this second film where it's basically trashing the only people who liked his first film?
Yeah.
Like, it's all like,
and
hey.
that kind of makes me think I'd love it, honestly. It just sounds like such a wild move.
Yeah, so there's a bit in this book. There's still like little skerricks of it, but we combed out most of it, where I'm kind of getting paranoid because I'm in this mansion and I'm having a meltdown, kind of thinking about like how my readers are going to react to this. Like,
yes,
and like one of the ones that remains is an earlier one where it's like, oh, they're going to say Kanye's black and you're white, and you're a white guy who's broken into a black man's house, and you're and all that. So that remained in because that was still sort of, because you can do it once.
Yeah, sure.
But there was a lot more of that in the book, of me striking out at the reader. and the editor said to me, he goes, oh, you know, John, if this was like a documentary or a radio, like we could see the little twinkle in your eye and the tone in your voice, where you are kind of making a point about the hypocrisy of people, but you're also taking the mickey out of yourself a bit and using hyperbole. Sure. And he said that just doesn't come across when you read it. It just comes across as you laying the boots into the people who've
readership,
the people who've gone out and spent their $30 to buy the book, and then it's like, hey, asshole.
And even in the context of this chat, you've mentioned someone who's like an enemy of yours or whatever, and like you do mention that in the book as well. You strike me as someone who, because I'm definitely like this, a lot of my day, especially time like in the shower or when I'm walking the dog, is occupied by just like imagining myself in an argument that probably will never come to pass.
Yes.
And just acting out all the different ways it could go and what I would do. And I just like catch myself in this like mental improv game that I'm doing.
Yes.
And then the guilt at the end of it was like, what a colossal waste of time and brain energy to just be imagining yourself in a fight with someone or replaying a previous fight and what you wish you had said. Like, because you also do on each year, what is the...
On Yom Kippur.
On Yom Kippur, you do a
list of my... because Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement.
Yep.
And you're meant to, as a Jewish person, go to other people and say, listen, if I've upset you during the year, I apologise. Yeah, so I guess it's a bit like the Alcoholics Anonymous thing. And you're meant to go around going, so I do this thing on social media where I'm going, it's the Day of Atonement, where you ask others for forgiveness. So the following people, you need to ask for my forgiveness. You've all offended me. And then I have a list of about 100 people. Who,
didn't you got a billboard of it the other year?
Yeah. 2 years ago, it was coincidental. This dude just contacted me. A bit like, you seem to always be like asking for my home address or whatever. He goes, oh, John, hey, I'm a big fan. Hey, I own this bar in Gertrude Street or Smith Street, and we also own the Billboard next to it. And it's like, if you've ever got an art project, like, can you like the Billboard's yours? And then I was going, hey, I can do that this year. So that's why I did that. Yeah, but then
I didn't know that a bar nearby owned that. That's
no, but also then the guy also said to me, he said the next day, he goes, basically he was on ecstasy when he reached out to me. So I was like a bit confused about a number of things. Should I still take the compliment about my work? And then on top of that is, so hang on, are you withdrawing the offer? Like, was this an offer made when you were on MDMA, and now that you're not on MDMA?
Or you're then feeling like, should I not take him up on the like good discount rate that he was offering me?
No, it was a freebie.
Complete, oh man, because that is an intrusive thought that creeps in a lot in my head. Anytime you like drive around and you see a billboard where it's like, your ad could be up here, and then a phone number, there's always a part of me where it's like, man, it'd be pretty funny to have a billboard for just it, not even to try and like shift units or anything. Just a billboard where I put up something about me, just not even like as a marketing exercise. Just to have a billboard is such a
mine
dream.
was up for about a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. But I think because everything's social media these days, you just buy it for an hour.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then put it up and then put it on social media with your face in front of it.
I'm not going to ask you to out the bar, but I am, like, I know, the billboard is like not far from where I live. So I'm now there. Now you have my address. I'm now going to go around all the bars nearby in the hopes that they're the one. And be like, hey man, is the manager in? Can I ask him a question about any prime real estate that he might happen to own in the area to promote this pod and our upcoming live show on Double Island? But yeah, so where were we? Yeah, so you didn't have an idea of you didn't have anything ready in the chamber for if you had encountered Kanye. You were kind of happy to just
even though I did write some of the book inside the mansion, then when I came out and I'm back in Melbourne having to write more of the book, that's when I really figured out exactly what the book was about and what I was going to focus on, and I just, it was more like taking out things because there were all these things that weren't about the big theme. And then it was okay, well, I won't put that in. And one thing that wasn't in the first draft and you might be shocked by this, is when, because part of the book, I find out that Yeezy, his brand, his fashion brand, were having an open casting call for models.
Yep.
But the requirement was you had to have a bald head. Yep. Like you had to have a shaved head. Mm-hmm. So I shaved my head. And then...
and that's cultural appropriation to me. I felt disgusted when I read that part.
Well, I can't really see what's going on there.
Exactly.
Because you've doubled. You've got both a cap and also you're like, hey, Johnny, if you're going to grab my cap, I've got these big headphones.
I really don't want anyone to know. Yeah.
Yes. And so that wasn't in the... And so I got my head shaved and then I go audition, didn't get a call back or whatever. But that wasn't in the original draft because I was worried... Because that happened after I left the mansion. Okay. And I was kind of worried that I'd gone mad in the mansion and there's kind of like a closure to me going mad, if that makes any sense. And then like I'm out in the real world now. And then to get my head shaved again is just me being a lunatic again. And then there was also the thing of, can I, mess with the timeline so I can pretend that this thing I did outside the mansion afterwards, I did earlier, but then I'd have to like reverse engineer the whole book for me having a bald head.
Yeah, at that point it's a little...
It's too hard.
You can tweak things a little bit, but it's like lifting a major thing like that, I can understand feeling a bit like, being a bit dishonest here.
No, I was happy. I was just like... I just couldn't figure out... okay, so when did I... Yeah, like I'm going to have to like... foreshadow that I've got to
talk about like, I'm extra cold tonight in the mansion.
And then also the other thing was because we decided not to put pictures in the book because we thought we're pushing our luck a bit here. Like I'm already writing about making my way into Kanye's property and and maybe photos is just a bit much.
Sure. Well, I did want to ask you this.
And so there for that point, it was like, but I didn't know that at the time. I was going, hang on, if we put photos in the book, it's like going to contradict the story.
Sure. If you can see you've shaved your head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, just to be clear, I did shave my head and did go to the audition and then did get kicked back. I just did it after
the mansion. Yeah.
After I came out of the mansion. I don't want anyone to think like, because I'd never fudge that I'd do something that awesome. And in fact...
To break into the mansion and actually do that, but then lie about shaving your head.
But also for anyone into the deep lore of me, when I went to you'd know about Father Bob Maguire,
yes,
and that he passed away, and so I was scheduled to doing his state funeral to do the eulogy, and I was in LA like 48 hours before that,
right,
or less, and that's when I had shaved my head, and so I knew I was going, oh my god, if I do this, like How did it affect the state? Because the state funeral was like getting broadcast and everything like that.
People are going to be like, wow, John's really not coping with the loss of his friend.
And then I immediately, not that I guessed this, but I immediately picked up that when you got your head, because I did a 0.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I was already like picking up straight away, like I go to Starbucks and it's like, hang on, why is this person not looking at me behind the counter? It's like, oh, they think I've got leukemia.
Right.
And I picked that up straight away and I was going, I cannot do this eulogy at Bob's funeral.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of people in the church and it's being broadcast and with this bald head, because it just looks like people are just that's going to be the most distracting thing ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank God I went through my closet and I found my grandfather's cap.
Okay.
And I pulled that over it. And I on the one hand, I wasn't happy because I thought I didn't like the optics of like, oh, John's an artist. He can't just wear a suit.
Yeah, it's
like
everything's got to be.
I'm too interesting. I'm too interesting to like just not wear a cap like this.
You didn't think about going like full professional wig, like really get someone to do up the John Safran hair?
I can not remember the details, but it really was. I landed and
went straight there.
Oh, it was even worse than that. Because I'd booked my ticket.
The plane landed in the funeral?
No, I'd booked my ticket in this haphazard way that I landed back in Sydney.
Okay.
And I'm in the plane thinking, and it occurs to me for the first time, hang on, the state's funeral's in Melbourne and I've booked this plane back to Sydney.
Right.
And so then I'm like at the airport in Sydney having to like get another ticket to come down to Melbourne. It was all... I think I arrived like in Melbourne on the morning and then just had to desperately get the cap and then drive. Yeah, anyway, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I did apologise to the Premier because it was a state funeral, not on the day, but later I saw him at this other thing and I said, listen, I just want to explain my cap because I can understand you being a politician. You must have to like liaise with lots of artists and turn up to and you probably think we're all a bunch of narcissistic lunatics. And you would have said, here's another example. Here's an artist. And he can't even make Father Bob's funeral about, he can't even like step into the background just for that.
He's got to treat it like it's the Met Gala.
Cap or whatever.
Yeah.
So I explained this all to the Premier and he looked at me like, I was strange for that. Not so he'd forgotten about the cap, obviously.
Of course, yeah, 100%. Did you get any feedback online after the event about the cap? You never heard a thing about the cap again?
No. I built this all up in my head, a bit like you in the shower.
Well, yeah. So that does your imagined imagined conflicts with people. Does that?
Yeah, but I was that's a good fact check for anyone who's going to go, oh, did John really shave his head?
Yep.
Now, you just have to look at the state funeral footage.
You can sort of see around the perimeter of the cap.
For my worst enemy who's trying to like take me down.
Yeah, again, this person that you're imagining yourself in constant conflict with. Well, so because you're one of your big expertise topics would be, I would say, yes, not so much being in conflict, but putting yourself in these situations where you might have to have a conflict or an interaction that most other people would think of as being their worst possible nightmare. Okay. And so I wanted to get your advice because I'm working on something at the moment.
Oh, yes.
That I wanted to get the John Safran guide to how to approach this scenario. Yes. So I need to give a fair bit of backstory here. So I'm working on a book that is about me and the fact that I had cancer when I was a kid.
Ooh.
So from 10 until 12.
What kind of cancer, may I ask?
I had a thing called aplastic anemia, which is very similar to leukemia. Had a bone marrow transplant.
Wow.
And so over the course of being in hospital, you end up, you kind of go in and out of the Royal Children's Hospital, and every now and then you just by circumstance, you will kind of align with some of the same people. You'll kind of be on weirdly on the same schedule. So you kind of, you make your friends on the hospital. And there was this one girl who I became really friendly with because we just always seemed to be in there at the same time. And she ended up being my first ever girlfriend from when I was I think 12 till 13. And we were in touch a little bit after that, and I have her on Facebook, and my idea for the book is that I'm sort of telling the story of kind of what happened back then, but then also breaking it up in between with a chapter that's like me interviewing my parents about like what their memory of it is. And the whole kind of idea of it is how, the idea of me sort of being an unreliable narrator and sort of basically fact-checking myself on the fly with other people that are involved in the story.
Great, I like it.
And so obviously I'm like, well, it'd be cool to go and talk to this girl, like my, childhood sweetheart that I met in the hospital ward. I mean, what a great story. And so I was telling my fiance about this, and I was like, "Oh, I've still got her on Facebook," and I go on her Facebook page, and I hadn't, I barely ever check Facebook, but I went.
So your fiance has her as a Facebook friend?
No, me.
Yeah, you've got her as a Facebook friend.
Yeah. I mean, that would be if she.
Anyway, go on. Don't be distracted by what I said.
Sure,
I like this. I like this.
Okay, so anyway, I go on her Facebook page. This girl. And the last, like, let's say maybe like 2 years worth of posts are all just exclusively anti-vax related.
Oh, yeah.
How can people get this COVID vaccine and be putting all this shit in their bodies where they don't know where it's come from?
Yeah.
And I'm reading this going, your life was saved by like a combination of chemotherapy and all these other drugs. I was like, this is just so fascinating to me.
Totally.
And interesting.
Yeah.
And so obviously at the point where I go to like have a conversation with her, I mean, comedically, what a gift from above. Like, that's so funny. But also sitting in a room with someone where I like maybe get into like deep, like their theories about this stuff and how it's like, very hypocritical given their history. Yeah. I'm like, that terrifies me. Like the idea of
what's terrifying
just
to you?
the discomfort of it. Like it's, I don't know. Like how would you, if you're me and you're going down to have that chat with her?
I'm just talking as storytelling, not any ethics or anything like that. Like it's such a good opportunity, and I actually think you're squandering a good opportunity by not pursuing it. You're like,
I'm not saying I'm not going to.
Like, no. I'm just telling you. Like, I don't think the problem is should you do it. I think the problem is if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? Why are you even like in the creative field trying to write a book?
Oh, for sure.
You have to go and do it.
Yeah. No. I am going to go do it.
Yeah. Cool.
But this is my question to you: is what would your how would you approach?
I would.
That?
Okay. So
because obviously, I wouldn't
me personally.
Yeah.
So I would go in there and I'd be thinking, listen, I don't want to cut this person off. I'd let them have their say. I'd be thinking it's a book. It's not like I'm live streaming this, so I'll be able to like edit things later. So I'm not going to be stressed out about anything that's said here.
I've already shaved my head, so I don't have to worry about the timeline of that.
Yeah. And but I'd be poking. Also, I'd be poking in at selective times. Like I wouldn't totally give her the what do you call it? The podium.
Yeah.
Because I think you're going to sound a lot better to the reader if your challenges to her are while she's there. I think it's
for
not
sure.
No, I don't think it's going to sound as good if you, on the whole, are kind of just let her have a say in there. Don't say anything back. And then when you're back at your keyboard a week later,
what a moron.
Then I said this awesome, now I've thought of this awesome thought now. Now
that I've had a shower and played it out properly, I can really...
Yeah, you can do a bit of that, but I think you'll get it. I get away with so much, I think, because people cannot deny that I had the
moral high ground.
The guts to actually to confront. Like I get to platform like a white nationalist because people are just going, well, he went there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
sure.
And so I think you have to say some stuff to her when you're there, but also don't cut her off all the time. Let her have her say or whatever, and also just think of. I reckon this situation, it's so strong that if it goes wrong, that's storytelling wise is. good.
I think it's that thing, isn't it, right? And obviously this is something that you're very good at, of like being in the moment where it's like, oh my God, this is the worst possible outcome imaginable, but you think of the work at the end of that.
Yeah,
it's like,
totally.
Well, it kind of makes it better to watch.
Yeah, just say she screams at you, right? Good, storytelling wise.
Yeah.
Just say you start getting tricked and you're going, oh, hang on, does she have a point about how bad these vaccines are? And you kind of get slowly brainwashed yourself.
Oh, incredible.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Like, I'm just trying to think of, it's such a good situation.
Every possible way it could go. Because, I mean, for me, thinking about it and like being in a tense conversation about it kind of makes my skin crawl. But as you say, storytelling-wise, fine. But the
better than fine.
Well, yeah, yes, good. The almost the worst outcome is just having this chat where it does not come up in any way, and then I'm near the end just kind of having to be like really inorganically like, hey, how about those Facebook posts? Like the point where she's just not skirting near it at all, and I'm having to really just be like,
that sounds good.
I have to just like sandbag her with this.
Totally. But that sounds good too. So you've just got to build up the guts. And I understand because I get scared too. So you've got to build up the guts. If that happens, you're right. You cannot walk out of there and not have brought it up. But you've just got to think, if you bring it up, in case she doesn't want to bring it up at all, if you then bring it up at the end, that's all you need to do, because just say she throws you out, good ending.
Yep.
Just say she wants to drag you into a thing. And I was like, sometimes people hold theories, mystical, spiritual, conspiratorial, whatever you want to say. They can go on a bit, but because it's a book, you're not live streaming.
Yep.
You kind of don't panic about that. So if you're thinking, oh my God, this is
right.
Gee, I can't even follow this. It's so whatever. Don't worry about that, because you can
condense it down.
Yeah, condense it. So don't worry about that. No, I think this is. I think it's a gift.
It really, I just would never have, I was just thinking, hey, yeah, go chat with her, because we, that's an interesting kind of thing. Go and visit your first ever girlfriend and how we met in hospital and everything. She'll have different memories. And then just, literally was explaining this to my partner, and I was like, oh, weirdly, we're friends on Facebook. I was like, here, I'll show you her. And then I go on her page, and I just like that. This is the first thing I see is all these statuses, and then I'm just looking at my screen. I'm like, whoa! And like my partner's like, well, hang on, what are you looking at here? Are you like taken aback by?
I think you've got the. I don't know what style of the book is, but you've got the option of having as a bit of a skeleton, or is reckoning with this whole thing of you're meant to question authority. Like, that seems like a good thing. Like, question things or whatever, but this kind of questioning of everything leads to people having these. Sometimes being anti-establishment leads to really bad outcomes.
Yeah.
And you should look at this dude who's online. He's an American, I think, called Professor Dave, and he has a YouTube channel called Professor Dave Explains, and he gets really exacerbated in an interesting way, because he kind of reckons with this about people who box their dangerous theory into a category of like, it's good to fight the system, or it's good to not trust the government, or you should always question science, and he sort of has a response to all of that or whatever. But that could be because that's super interesting, the thing you said, and it's such a high stakes and a personal thing, the fact that you've been saved by Western medicine. So it's not even so you're not even having a go at her. I mean, you are, but on top of the awesome storytelling wise of confronting her and going, you were saved by Western medicine, by Big Pharma. And so what do you have to say about it? On top of that, you were saved by Western medicine and Big Pharma.
Well, and you'll love this. Get this. She not only, not to give out too much information about this person, she not only had basically, I think she had the same thing that I had, and was cured and survived. Her sister then got it twice and survived in the end. So it's like, I mean, for me, it's like, I find anything anti-vax to be like kind of crazy, because it's like, well, I mean, Western medicine has saved my life, but she's 3 for 3. She's like, she within her family has like witnessed it like cure, and it came back with a sister, but again, it's like still they're all here. It's like, I mean, how much more?
Yeah. And for anyone listening, because there are people listening going, oh yeah, but what about this example? And that example, and that's true. It's true. You're allowed to question things or whatever. It's just doing this overall denouncement.
Yeah.
Like in the overall scheme of things, having a denouncement of Western medicine is pretty cocky.
Yeah.
I remember, because one thing that's come up relatively recently is the whole thing of you have people from different ideological strands agreeing that you should be absolutely skeptical about Western medicine. And you even have religious groups like the Christian Scientists, I think.
Yep.
Is it them? And I don't know who else. Maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses have some things where it's about not allowing blood transfusions.
Sure.
And so you have this thing that you really associate with, you don't, not the hippie left at all.
That's the thing, yeah. And I mean, even within, on a micro level of it, it doesn't even have to be like I've fully rejected Western medicine, but you'll have a friend, if you have a flu and you go and get some Codral, they're like, you know what, don't bother with this shit, this essential oil. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people do have just even a small version of it where they're like, they wouldn't turn down treatment in a serious example, but just for the common cold, people are like, but nah, you know what fixes it up? Chicken soup.
Yeah, but your book can question the greyness, and because there will be examples of when obviously there will what's the I don't want to the opium crisis in America is. I haven't done a lot of research into this, but it's because a pharmaceutical company was like, we're just going to get so much. We can
just make a lot of money.
We're going to make a lot of money. So it's totally. So anyone listening, I'm not going give a free pass to pharmaceutical companies, but I remember thinking, one thing that changed my perspective was when I went to Haiti and to do a story about voodoo, and obviously that's kind of vivid and amazing, and I shot my story, but when you watch that story you can't smell the story. and what I'm saying, Haiti's got such a health crisis there, and part of it is because they won't get with it. This is the ultimate alternate medicine case study. Is Haiti?
Yeah.
It's what happens when you don't go do Western medicine and go with alternative medicine, in this case voodooism or whatever. And anyway, I remember.
You suggesting I go to Haiti for the book?
I remember, and around the same time as that, I was also shooting stories in America. It was this evangelical Christian, and he was very skeptical about Western medicine for his different reasons or whatever. And I just remember thinking, man, when you get backed over accidentally by a car, you're going to be taken to a hospital and they're going to fix it. And it's all going to be, you're going to get all the benefits. You can't get all the benefits of Western medicine and then pretend we're at zero, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
We are living till 80 or whatever, and instead of 30. And because of Western medicine, you can't have all these benefits and then just pretend you're not getting all the it's just a given thing that we all live to 80. Oh, it's just a given thing,
right?
That we can get my book Puff Piece, which is about the Philip Morris's cigarette company getting into e-cigarettes, because I smoked cigarettes just for the duration of that book, and also vaped for the duration of that book, that I kind of screwed up my heart a bit.
Right.
And I had to and the cardiologist said, well, who was going through my health, because I was having these mini heart attacks. And he said, do you do this? Do you do that? Whatever. And he goes, do you smoke? And I go, funny you should mention that, because I hadn't my entire life, but then for 18 months, because I like to immerse myself in what I'm writing about, was
there a part of you that's like, how could this motherfucker not know about the book?
And then I'm smoking and vaping or whatever, and then I said for 18 months, pretty much chain smoking and vaping, and he said, yeah, that would have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Wow.
So anyway, then I go in and out in about 45 minutes it takes, and they put stents in your heart.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, this is an example of like this would have killed me probably
Sure.
20 years ago.
Yeah, that would have been your final
So
book.
I'm not going to accept stents that have saved me and then just pretend like I'm just owed that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna thank if there's
That's
another.
not Western medicine. That's just nature.
Yeah, exactly. If there's other examples, I happily will criticize Western medicine and the big pharma totally, and I encourage others. But I'm not going to be such a narcissist that I'm not going to like go ruminate over the fact that I'm only alive now because of the stents that were put in my heart that took 45 minutes to put in.
We talked about you
in my arteries, I mean.
We talked about you in Squat imagining what your enemies would say about that book. And now you seem to be imagining enemies of mine as a response to my book about Western medicine and what they're saying to you off the back of that.
Yeah. I think this book sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
It really sounds great.
I hesitate to bring it because I'm still very early stages of kind of quote unquote working on it. And I don't want to do that thing where I'm like publicly talking about something that is a long way from existing. But I just thought that little nugget, I was like, God, that is a real little SAFRAN rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, and I think you can explain things. I think the other thing when you're writing a book, you start getting really insular and just navel gazing and da-da-da-da-da. I reckon your thing is really interesting to a pretty mainstream audience and you should explain it that way. Like you explain some of the bigger points really simply and because they're so interesting explained simply. I think your story is like the real interesting and colourful and crazy thing that only you could say, and it's weird and blah blah, but I think kind of like setting up the architecture and just explaining the issues really simply. Like this isn't the type of thing where it's normal and therefore you have to make it confusing. I totally get you. Like the story's already mad in the best way possible. Yeah. And it's bringing up all these really awesome, interesting points that a lot of people will be interested in. So it's like, make the skeleton normal and simple. I've really got to pull my finger out with it because it started. The idea initially was just you would have a chapter and then it would be me interviewing like just my dad about the chapter that you've just read. Yeah. And so he would give, and I really liked the idea that he would be like, that didn't happen in that order, that, you know, he would just, and then I can just write whatever and he can just on my foggy memory of being a 10-year-old, and then he's kind of doing the live fact checking. But the couple of times I've like tried to sort of start getting it going, I've written a couple of chapters and then I've given them to him to read, and then I've sort of sat down with him to do the like interview bit, and all he's interested in talking about is just like critiquing the writing. And I'm like, no, that's kind of not the point. Like I want to get your view of the story, not just like, and it literally like correcting my grammar and like use of punctuation. I'm like, Dad, I mean, we're really putting the cart before the horse here. So far, everything you've said. Okay, right. I'm like, that has to be part of the book. Sure, okay. That's awesome. You and your father, father getting it right. People love it. Yeah. People love family stories as long as there's conflict. And that's proper conflict. Sure. That's pretty interesting. Yes, I put that in. Yeah. I started reading this book that people have told me to read since I was in first year uni, Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt. I don't want to say his last name. Vonnegut, yeah. And I finally bought a copy of it 2 days ago. I started reading it. I'm like, my God, I should have read this book. Oh, yeah? When they told me to. Like, you are super into it? Yeah, super into it. But part of it is, and part of what makes it really kind of fun at the start, is he kind of talks about like the plot in his head about how he was going to start the book and end the book. And he does it in a funny way. But yeah, it's him like going, for so long I thought this was going to be the start of the book, and then this was going to be the climax. And he explains at the start the climax that he was originally. I don't know whether he's going to have it, whatever. But it's you can do anything in books in kind of fun ways, and and any obstacle can just become part of the book, and people like it. Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, you're on a winner here. I appreciate the nice words and the feedback. Maybe I'll have to get you on as a recurring guest, and it can just be anytime I'm hitting a wall with the book, we just do an episode. Yeah, I'll keep on going. Coach me through it live. I think this is a really good idea. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And there you go, John SAFRAN.
basically just getting him on the pod to, give me some career advice and help me workshop the beginnings of this book idea. I hope you enjoyed that chat. I certainly always love spending time with John. I think his work is just incredible. I think he's such a great, fascinating guy, and I cannot recommend the book Squat enough. I tore through it in about 2 nights. It's really great. It's really interesting, and he is also at the moment doing a live tour version of the show, which you can go and check out around the country. Tickets are at comedy.com.au. Head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/howtodoeverything. It is free at the moment. It's the place where you can discuss things from this episode that stuck out to you. So please let me know. Have you ever broken into an abandoned building? I'd love to get a thread going about squatting experiences that people have had. And there will be a paid bonus episode tier coming very soon to the Patreon as well. So get on there. That's where you can find out the updates for that. Also, follow us on Instagram at How to Do Everything Podcast, and give the show a nice little review on your podcast app of choice if you are liking it. I say that every week, but it really does help the show. Thank you for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time for more How to Do Everything.